Hello, hello. Thank you for joining us today. We've got a great workshop planned for you. We've got a whole bunch of new Nitro features to go over and some pretty exciting ones, I think, personally. But before I hand things over to James Restivo, our VP of Product Development, I have a couple things I'd like to go over, just the housekeeping things. My name, by the way, is Krista White, and I'm the Director of Marketing here at Crow Canyon. And we put these workshops on for you to give you support, to help you, and keep you up to date on everything that's new with Nitro. So with that being said, we do want these to be interactive workshops. We don't want to just talk at you. So if you have questions, don't be shy. Use that question box on the right-hand side there. We definitely want to hear from you. And this will be recorded. We'll add it to our YouTube channel as well as our website. So if you'd like to reference this later, you can also do that. And lastly, if you do have any super in-depth questions, very specific to your organization, you want to get down into the nitty-gritty, we're of course always available to you for support as well. But anything broader, please feel free to go ahead and use that question box. And I will stop talking at this point. I'll go ahead and hand things over to James. I'm so excited to hear about the new features. James, what do you have for us?
Thanks, Krista. Appreciate it. Yeah, we got some great things going on. Really big news, exciting news. I think a lot of people are going to be excited about is the 5,000 list view threshold error that has been persistent for a long time. We've gotten around that now, and that's going to be the first thing I show here in just a little bit. Yeah, again, welcome. As Chris has stated, if you have any questions, feel free to pop them into that box. If you have any questions about availability features on different platforms as well, just as you probably know, we do roll out things for our commercial 365 customers first. Then usually we get stuff going for any GCC High customers we have out there, and then we'll look at getting things on-prem. So it does roll. We do try to keep things as close to parity as possible, as you probably know. But just wanted to reiterate that, kind of just show you some of the things we talk about may not be available yet for the on-prem world, but rest assured it's going to be coming soon. And in a future update, we'll have your on-prem package will include some of these new features. So just quick high-level outline of what we're going to cover today before I switch over to presenting my screen. We're going to cover that list view threshold, getting around that, how you can configure your web parts as they are today to address it. And then we're going to look at some of the other features. We've got a few minor UI updates, maybe some things that will help you make the list views look better, some things that will help you show things in the form better. Just a few minor things we'll talk about towards the after we go through the large list support that we have now for our system. So I'll go ahead and make myself presenter and make sure I'm sharing the correct screen here. All right, perfect. Okay, good. I think we're good. Let me just double check here. All right, we're good. Excellent. All right, so if you're seeing my screen, you'll notice right away 5,000, over 5,000. So I went just a little bit over 5,000, and we've done some stress testing up above, up above to 6,000, 7,000, et cetera, and even 10,000. So it does support it. But this is the real exciting thing, is that when you're using tiles and dials, when you're using list views, and when you're using Nitro reports, you're going to be able to reference list views that pull back that contain more than 5,000 items in them. Now, previously, that was a hard limit that Microsoft had in place. They still pretty much have it in place, but there are some tricks we use to get around that. But it is still kind of a persistent problem. Maybe not a problem, but really it's for load on the Microsoft servers, they want to try to prevent pulling or querying more than 5,000 items in one query, which is really where that 5,000 list view threshold comes from. Now, if you're on-prem, like I said, this will be available eventually for on-premises as well. But you do have the option on-prem to manage that list view limit on your own. So you could bring it up to 10,000, you can bring it up to 15,000, whatever you need to do. So on-prem doesn't have this limitation as much as the 365 world does, right? So that's why we got it out for 365. Like I mentioned, we'll get it out for GCC High not too distant future. But this is the big thing where you no longer need to create multiple views, views by year, archive off, although all those things are useful. And in general, for performance purposes in SharePoint, in Nitro and SharePoint, it really does help to keep the list at a lower number. But ultimately, if you have a large list, if you have lots of tickets coming through, your enterprise system, tons of purchase requests, tons of IT tickets, tons of different requests coming through, you're going to hit that 5,000 limit sooner or later. And some customers will hit it within a month or two. Some customers will hit it over a course of a couple of years. Depends on how your level of usage of the system is. But I'm showing you that we do have this support now where you can have a view of that list that pulls back more than 5,000 items, and you can use it in your reporting, in your tiles. So how do we support that? Well, once again, Nitro upgraded to the latest version, which I think we're on 0.21 for 365 now. This was released in around 15.16, the 2.5.15.16. So that support's been there for a few weeks now, and we're continue to to support that. But yeah, if you get the Nitro updated to the latest version in 365, you should have this option available. And how we handle this, and this is going to change in the not too distant future to just automatically support the large list. So you don't have to make the setting, but setting change. But if you are using Nitro today, you have a list view that you want to use, like the all items view or whatever, that pulls back more than 5,000 items. You want to do it in your tiles, you want to do it in your reports. You have to toggle a button in the settings, and I'll show you where that is for the different tools that we have. So I'll start out with our the tiles and dials, since I have that on the screen right now. I'll go ahead and put it into edit mode. As a lot of you probably know, if you append this question mark CCS mode equals 1, and you have our branding that's hiding these things up here, you can append this onto the URL, and it's going to give you the option to do edit mode for the page if you don't see it automatically. And I'm going to come into this list link tiles. You'll see it does have a little bit of performance hit here where it's taking a little bit longer to load, but ultimately it will load and it doesn't take that long. But it is a little bit maybe longer to load because of the larger list, because of the number of items. And what you'll see in your ticket tiles here, I think this is the one where I configure it. I'll show you where the setting is regardless. It's in the body. Right, so we're configuring a link tile and you click on body. That's where you're going to get the option to change it to is large list. So that's right here in the kind of this highlighted area here in the middle of the settings is large list. So we're indicating that yes, this is a large list. As I said, eventually they'll be going away and we'll just natively support large lists, so you won't have to toggle this on. But for now, if you're using any of our tools with a large list, with a list view that's bringing back 5,000 items, you want to toggle that on. So you get to do that for each of the tiles. Maybe some of the tiles are never going to pull back more than 5,000 items, right? I mean, why would you have more than 5,000 overdue tickets? I mean, let's hope you don't. I mean, if you do, there's different problems that you have. But if you have open tickets, obviously, even that you probably don't want to have over 5,000 open tickets. I just happened to in this demo. So in general, you probably don't want to have to hit that limit for some of these views. But if you do, if you need to, or if you want to just get an all tickets view, then that is large list option is there. Again, that's in the tiles and dials. We're going to the body, the actual link tile itself. We're going to the body section and clicking yes over here to is large list. And that's going to allow that support over here to show it more than 5,000 items. Now we're also showing this in our list views, and I'll show you where that setting is in the list view web part. So that's just the next web part down here. We'll go to edit web part and configure settings on the right. And in here, you're going to have it on the view. It's on the view by view. I'm sorry, I'm forgetting where it is. Yeah, it is. Okay. It's on the view settings here. So if you're configuring a new view or editing an existing view in our list view web part, you can edit that and say yes or no for is it a large list. So that will allow you to, again, have more than 5,000 items pulled back in your list view. So you can save that, save the settings, and you're good to go. And so you can see I did it for one list view, but not the other one. So if I went over to this one and there were more than 5,000 items, I would run into that limitation. All right, so I'll go ahead and republish this, and then we're going to take a look at our NITRO reports as well, because that's another area where we've added the support for more than 5,000 items. And you'll see in our, I think it was this one here, I did not enable the large list threshold or large list setting. So you see you're going to come back with this. This is the typical thing you would see when you cross that list view threshold. It's not an error per se in the report. It's just saying, hey, you're pulling back more than 5,000 items, and I can't handle that. These web parts can't handle that right now because we haven't configured them to do that. But if we wanted to change that, and I'll go back into the edit mode here on this one. Mode equals 1. And let's get to that edit screen. Edit the page. Edit the web part. And I actually have to go over here to the reports themselves. Which one's this one? Tickets overdue the last 7 days. And this is a nice feature. If you have a lot of reports, it might be this is one of those little things that you might miss in just day-to-day use of the product. This search bar at the top, I think it's fantastic, and you have a lot of reports to easily get to the one you want. So this one's tickets overdue last 7 days. So tickets overdue, and it automatically changes what's available. So that's a nice little feature I just happened to notice while I was going through here, and just wanted to share it with you all, that there's an easy way to get to the exact report you're looking for, so you don't have to scroll through the whole list every time. And say we got our tickets overdue the last 7 days, and we have that is large list toggle right here. So it's a little different. It's a checkbox versus a yes or a no, but that's how we would configure it or enable it for a report. Now, before I get the question, I'm sure there's going to be a question about it. How do I apply this across the board? Well, you need to go into each web part individually to get this, or each report or each list view to set that setting, unfortunately. So there's a little bit of a, it's something you do on a case-by-case basis to get that support in there. And like I said, most times you have list views, or you have tiles, or you have things where you don't even want, or really wouldn't even expect to bring back more than 5,000 items. So you might not even need to enable this for everywhere. I happen to, because I wanted to show it in this demo, but you can just do it on a case-by-case basis where you need to. So in this case, I've set it to is large list. I can show my report preview now that it appears, because this open tickets last 7 days, I guess, was bringing back more than 5,000 items. And because I did create those tickets about 7 days ago, about a week ago, so that makes sense. And if I come back over here, republish, and refresh this page. So sometimes it takes a minute for it to filter through to the actual page because of caching issues. But you'll see that now this report comes up where all the others still have that issue, where we just need to toggle that is large list option, and then we'd be able to see all these reports. Again, like I said, this is something we're going to roll out as part of these web parts and a future update to the to NITRO. So you don't have to toggle that on and off. But in the meantime, if for now, for the next few weeks, I think it'll be you want to show a report or a list view or tile with more than 5,000 items in that list view. This is the way you would do it. This is what you would do. So we got a good question here from the comments. Is there a concern about being throttled by Microsoft? That's a great question. I don't think that's going to be a problem. Like I said, we did test it for larger lists, 6,000, 7,000, 10,000, and we didn't get any throttle errors. We didn't get any pushback, or haven't gotten any pushback from Microsoft at this point. We've tested it fairly extensively, so I don't expect we will. But the throttling usually happens when you're making a lot of calls back and forth, and that'll come into play if you're doing a lot of workflows at one time, if you're doing a lot of mostly workflows really, or custom actions. I think mostly workflows actually, where you're calling outside, because if you're we're using a workflow, it's the engine's kind of sitting outside SharePoint, so it's pinging SharePoint for the information, and that can cause the throttling issues that the person is asking about. with this list view threshold, I don't expect that to be a problem. Now, if you run into that, certainly let us know, and we'll take a look at that. But I don't expect that to be a challenge or a problem. Okay, great. So that's the list view threshold, support for large lists that we have now. So another question were requirements from Microsoft Nitro and version of Crow Canyon. So I think if you're using Nitro Studio, which I believe that the person who asked the question is using Nitro Studio on their 365, all you need to do is upgrade the Nitro Studio apps. And if you're not familiar with how to do that, just real quick, I'll go through it. A lot of you, I think, have probably done it, probably could do it in your sleep, but for those who haven't quite done it yet, a lot of times you'll have a Crow Canyon Nitro apps link if you're using one of our applications. However, if you're not using an application, another quick way to get to the Nitro apps, and I kind of use this all the time, is you go to site information over on the right, go to all site settings, and you're going to get to Crow Canyon Nitro apps in your site settings. You see there's a few other Crow Canyon, access to Crow Canyon Nitro stuff over there as well. But let's go ahead and open this up, and you're going to see this update available option. See this little circular arrows are going to tell you there's an update available. All you need to do at that point is update this site. I'm not going to click it right now because it'll take a little time to update, but you just hit that and it'll upgrade you to the latest version. Another way to do it is if you go to the Nitro admin home over here, and you can update all activated sites. So I have a ton of sites in my Nitro workshops, kind of playground here, and I can just do them all at once. I have about 30, 35 sites or something like that, and I can go ahead and update them all at once if I want to do that. So quick primer for people who may not remember how to do this or haven't done it before. This is how you would update Nitro to the latest version and get a lot of these features. So a lot of things we talk about on these workshops for folks who haven't been to these before is available through the Nitro Studio updates, and whether you're using an application, whether you're using Nitro Studio just as it is, as long as you have access to those updates and can update your site, you're going to see these features through Nitro. So pretty much everything we talk about on these workshops is specific to Nitro, not necessarily specific to any particular application. Just kind of let you know that. Okay, great. All right, so happy to field any other questions you have about the large list threshold or anything else that you want to throw in the questions box. Happy to field it. But at this point, I wanted to move on to a couple other things. Keep it, a couple of things that we've done with list views that might change up how you want to configure your list view. And I think last time or one of the previous workshops, we did some work with Nitro tiles and dials. So there's some different tricks and things that you can change about the tiles, colors and icons and all sorts of stuff there that you can play around with it. I think one of the previous workshops, one of the last two, those are all on our YouTube site. Go click on YouTube, go subscribe. You get information about any new videos that upload to that channel, whether it's a workshop, whether it's a regular webinar, whether it's other types of information. You can go and subscribe to that channel on our YouTube channel and get the information about videos. But what I'll talk about here with regards to the list view, and let me go back to, I'm going to click over back to our manager dashboard. So I'm going to hit this manager dashboard page. And I see it does take a little time to load with the 5,000 items in it, but that's okay. A lot of the UI changes we've done for our list view web part, I'm just going to do it with this one, even though there's no items in it, because it has to do with header, has to do with the footer, just some different things that you can do with the list view web part that we've added in. We're going to have some more interesting stuff coming, and one of the ideas we have coming down the line is where you can see a tile above the view and the count of the number of items in that view. I think I'd have to show you what that looks like when we get that ready, but that'll be another future update we look at releasing in the not too distant future. But in our Nitro list view, You might have skipped over this advanced settings area, which I would understand absolutely, because there's a lot of like codey looking stuff here. A lot of things are just kind of like, what is going on here? What's happening? And we're going to be writing up a document for explaining all this. We do have some documentation on this already, but we've added a few new things, and we're certainly going to add in a few more pieces of information to help you understand what's going on here. But a lot of it's really just settings in the web part. So it's once you kind of wrap your head around, it's not that bad. It's just a matter of knowing what the different things point to, what they do, and that's what we're going to explain in our documentation. I'll talk about a little bit here in our workshop. So, you can hide or show the web part title, which is the top bar here. You can see this web part title. This is actually what would show on the web part. So if I change this to true, and let's save that, and then I can, oops, all right, I'll come back. And I'll change this to overdue and unassigned. And now I'll republish. Actually, let me go ahead and open this up in a new tab here so I can easily make these changes without having to go back through all this. But let me go republish. And again, it takes a minute sometimes to actually register. Yeah, so there you go. Now you got the web part title. So very simply, I set that to true or false, and we can, kind of tighten up the screen a little bit if you want to not show that big blue header there or the web part title. We actually even have some settings around that web part title that we can take a look at some of those things. So let's go over to, so I'm clicking over to list view over here, which is the list view settings I'd opened up. And I'm going to go to that all overdue, I think it's all overdue tickets. All overdue tickets, here it is. All right. Yep, see, I set that to true. And there are some other things we can do here. So it's web part header right here. So we call web part title, web part header, kind of interchangeable. But you can see there's some things we can change here. We can change the font size, the font weight, the background color, the color of the text, or the border radius. So let's kind of just play around with things. I mean, this is what we like to do here, just kind of play around, see what what happens with different settings. I'm going to change a couple of them. I probably should do one at a time just so I can see it. But let's do something like that. It change the background color to white, which should change this to white. Of course, with the white text, I want to change that text to black. And then border radius basically just gives it some rounding on the edges. Well, well, hopefully that'll work. And we'll go ahead and give it a try. And while that's updating and getting done there, I did have a question about the web parts. Are they going to be upgraded manually for each site? That's a good question. As I was showing a little bit earlier, there are ways that you can do it on for a whole site collection at one time. But yeah, you'd have to update each site collection individually at least, because we don't have a way to do it across multiple site collections just yet. Though it is something we've talked about as a possibility down the line where you can update multiple site collections all at one time. But right now, the way you can update Nitro is on a site collection by site collection basis. You can do it on a site by site basis as well if you like, but certainly you can go to the Nitro admin home and update things all together for the whole site. So there you go. So now you can see, let's change it to white because yeah, I wanted to, and I'm not really seeing much of a border radius, but that's okay. You can see it changed the background color to white. It changed the text to black. So it gives another, kind of a little different look and feel to what you're dealing with. So that's the settings on that. I can change a few more just to kind of play around with it. So I'm going to click back over to my list view settings over here. Going to get to that overdue. So again, you have this all overdue, not overrude, overdue. All overdue. And you can see it does this. These search things are kind of I don't know, maybe they're underappreciated by me because I didn't really play with them much. But hopefully you guys get some use out of that because you can see you can just start typing in and it automatically filters down to what you're typing. So it gives you a quick, easy way to find your settings without having to search through all the whole list. So again, we can come back in here and let's play around with a few more things. The footer. So this is one that kind of like gets, I don't know, kind of a bad rap in my mind because it's kind of wide, kind of big. There's this big kind of footer area here taking up a lot of space. And we can reduce that down by giving it a vertical padding. Let's see, I think it's actually down below these, a height, right? So I changed it to 0 in one of my one of my settings, but I'm going to change it to 25, so that's going to bring it down. I think the default is like 100 pixels or 50 pixels maybe. So I'll change the height to 25 pixels. I'm going to leave the font size, weight the same. Actually, I'm going to change the background color to white as well, just to kind of give it a little more, maybe hide it a little more. And I'm going to change the text color to black. So now this is going to change, before I save this, it's going to change the footer settings down here. You can see it's already black by default, but I'm just kind of indicating that I want that color to be black. And we'll go ahead and come over here, refresh a couple times. So that sometimes takes a minute to take. So now change it to white and change it to black. I didn't really change the height too much, but we can play around with that setting. Maybe 25 gives it, bigger height. We can change it down to 10 and see what that looks like. It just gives you some ways to play around with it. So another area that you can play around with, if I go back to my settings over here, we'll go into that advanced settings and we're going to use extended settings JSON. There's a few other things that we can do here. We've, had, there's the parts themselves, right? There's the web part title, there's the header, which is actually, if we're talking about this header here, we're referring to this header, the columns header. So you can play around with that, change the size, change the font, make it so it doesn't truncate with the dots if it's longer than the width of the column width. If the title is where the column name is longer than the column width, it truncates, but you can get around that. So there's a lot of different things you can do here. Text overflow truncate. There you go. See, it's there. I think we could change that to wrap. Like I said, we're going to be releasing documentation to go through all these settings in detail, so you can see what they all do. We can go around, play with them, and change a few things. I'm not going to change too much because I'm not sure what else what else is going to change. But there's these things at the bottom too, where we can hide navigation arrows. When we open up an item, there's some navigation arrows for going back and forth. There's a lot of different things. There's a KPI, color formatting, list formatting settings that we can load. There's associated item settings, NITRO form settings. So a lot of these things are set to true by default, but if you wanted to make them false, we could do that as well. You can see we added in this disable hyperlink. So we've had customers who have list views that their end users are accessing on the portal pages, for instance, with hyperlinks to the category or to the users, the assigned staff even. This disable hyperlink will allow you to set it to true, and they will not be able to click through into that category or to that person. So it disables that hyperlink. It does it within the context of that list view. So there's, the columns filterable. I think I showed that in previous workshop where you can get the, what happens is if it's not filterable, you got this kind of thing here, which is, I think is okay. But a lot of people prefer to have the SharePoint kind of style where it drops down and you have the actual options that are available rather than creating some kind of conditional here. So if I click back over to my list view, columns filterable true would give you the actual options available for that dropdown. Multi-values in separate lines, so that's a new thing we released that allows you to have, rather than having multiple values in one line, they'll be in separate lines. I'll show you what that looks like from our version log, our release notes in just a moment. But this was a few things, play around with. Like I said, I won't go through that in exhaustive detail right now because we are going to have some documentation around it so you can see what it looks like, what the possibilities are. We maybe have some different examples of what the list view can show in it. So there's a couple things that we've released that help with the UI. We've been doing a lot of UI work lately because we really want to improve the capabilities of what you can present to your end users and what you can present to your staff within the context of the program, and make it look nice. Maybe have some branding around it, have some different colors around it. Of course, within that you have a lot of a lot of options, a lot of possibilities, but So if we come back over here, you can see the filter is now going to show all the options available, which we don't have any because there are no items returned in this view. But if we did go into a view, you would see those the list of options available. So a couple things there. Um, Let me pop over to our release notes because I have taken some screenshots and some things that show what these things do rather than have you sit through me configuring it and then show it. I can actually show you what it looks like. So in our Nitro forms, we have that multi-values and separate lines, what I was just talking about. We can set that to true in our form extended settings, and that's going to show your multiple select options like this, right? So if you have multiple items, it could be, if you have that false, what it's going to show is example KB1, semicolon, example KB2, semicolon, example KB3, all in one line. But now we have the capability to show them as separate lines. So it gives you maybe a better look and feel for how you display those multiple items in a selection. We've done that here in the Nitro form and a couple other places as well. Another area we made an enhancement on the form is in the associated items. Previously, you would not get the color KPI, color formatting settings passing through into the associated item. Now we have the option where you can show the list formatting of the associated list within the context of the Nitro form. And you can do that through your configure associated column, extend adjacent settings under UI settings, load color KPI settings to true. Nitro list search, same thing, multi-values and separate lines. And then we can also change the text, the color of the text and the input. I also changed the header here, so it might be a little confusing, but the input text color can be changed to something else. I did red just to kind of make it obvious. Here's another big change I think you'll find useful is in the Nitro Print Manager. You'd have to incorporate or build a rich text template that had some kind of page break within it through the HTML. And we do have articles about that. And if you search our .help site, you can find information about how to do that. But now we've given you the option to do it directly within the list view print settings. So if you're doing list print, which means you're printing out a view of multiple items, and you want to print each one on a different page, we now have that direct support under the advanced section in the list print template settings. So export each item on separate page. If you're doing it as a PDF or you're doing it as a printout, it's going to give you different pages for each one of those. And then we talked about the large list supports in tiles and dials, reports, and Nitro list views as well. And so you got a few different places where you can show that. So yeah, just some different things that we can do with the headers, styles, with the list view UI, a few different UI things that we can do. We're continuing to improve on UI stuff as we go. If there's anything you want to see specifically, we certainly happy to take some input on that, or if it's not even UI related, if it's functionality related, happy to get some input on that, some feedback on what would make your lives easier. So that's kind of long and short of it. We did have one other question come in. Can the various query options be more than 5,000 on the first query value? I believe yes. I believe we can. Let's take a look. Actually, let's take a look, because normally what would happen, and what Fred is alluding to, is that in a list view, a SharePoint list view, typically you'd have to have the first, if you're using a filter, the first filter condition would have to limit your options to under 5,000 for all the other filter options to work. I think this is not needing to deal with that. I think you can have the first filter condition be as many items as needed to be. And actually here, what we're doing with our list view is, let's see, this is all, let's see, which one is this? Oh, this is list view. I want to go back over to here. Let me go to tiles and dials. Hang on. Let me edit that. All right, it's taking a minute to come up, so I apologize for that. I was doing this earlier where it kind of like, yeah, kind of like doesn't want to work sometimes. But I think we're essentially, I can go to this different. Let me go over here. Go to uh, tiles and dials. What am I doing here? Okay, tiles and dials. All right, it's taking a minute to load here. But essentially what I want to do is go take a look at that list view and see if we're using any kind of filter condition. And I don't think we are, because ultimately the whole list view is bringing back more than 5,000 items, so we can't really limit it even in that first query. So I think the answer to your question is yes, it can be more than 5,000 on the first query value because the view ultimately is pulling back more than 5,000 items anyway. Now, if you're trying to get a view of under 5,000 items, you may still want to have a query filter condition that pulls back less than 5,000 items to start. But that's, I think, an option. I'm not exactly sure. Because we're not changing anything with what SharePoint itself is doing. So if SharePoint has that limitation itself, then that limitation is still going to be there. All right. Well, anyway, it's taking a little while to load, and we can follow back up on that query. But certainly, if there's any other queries, any other questions, feel free to pop them in. There should be a little survey that pops up at the end of this workshop that allow you to answer some questions about what you want to see in future workshops. We're going to be planning our next few workshops based on that. There's going to be a few more things, probably another one on the list view options. We'll talk about those. Well, I didn't talk about them in detail here because we do plan on talking about those list view options in more detail in the future workshops. We'll have one dedicated to those advanced settings that you can go through and see exactly what each one of those does. And and there will be more options because we are actively working on that, actively developing on different ways to show the list views. So we'll be a little bit of that. But yeah, I think that's really what I wanted to show you on this workshop today. Really, the big thing is that large list support, where you can click on those toggles is large list. You can show tiles with more than 5,000 items. You can show reports with more than 5,000 items in the view. Really, that's the big win here, I think, for our NITRO Studio users, is that you can now do that, whether you're using an application, whether you're using a this one's not coming back. I don't know what's going on here. We're using NITRO Studio in general. You now have that support. So that is there for you. And if you need a refresher on how to upgrade Nitro, I did show it in this workshop. But if you need to work on that separately, certainly let us know. We'll take a look at it. But yeah, I think that's about it. So appreciate you all taking some time out of your day to join me on this workshop. And we'll be getting some more scheduled for September or October. Usually do about 2 a month. And we'll look forward to hearing any comments or feedback they have about the product, about these workshops, about anything, about life, the world in general, whatever you want to talk about. We're happy to talk about it. But yeah, feel free, make sure you subscribe to the Croquet channel. There's obviously you're getting the emails that talk about what these workshops are, what's coming up in the future. But if you can't make the workshop and you don't, you're missing your emails, or they're going to junk or something like that, at least if you subscribe to the channel, you get the notifications when there's new videos posted. So, all right, Krista, anything else?
I just wanted to say thank you, everyone, again for joining us today. I know, James, I really appreciated the overview of these new updates. I'm really excited about all of this. So appreciate you walking us through. And thanks again, everyone, for joining us today and being a part of the NITRO community.
All right, thank you all. Have a nice day.